I wanted to be a Spice Girl, Mark, and it just didn't pan out really. So I also fancied being a policewoman, mainly because I found the start of the bill, you know, the feet walking along the street. I found that all quite hypnotic. And I decided, you know, on a Friday that I wanted to work offshore, so I kind of booked my survival for the Monday, you know, typical sort of Kirstie fashion, decision's been made, right, let's execute. And I think having that, just feeling that ability in yourself to ask, yeah, I'd like to do that. Can I have that chance? Can I have that opportunity? And decommissioning is everything involved from taking it from producing state until there's nothing left. So that whole process is absolutely massive. Micromanagement is a really bad idea for a whole bunch of reasons, but it's also really time consuming. Yeah. And I generally do way too much. So if I don't micromanage, then it helps me manage my own time. Lose the self-limiting beliefs a bit quicker, because man, it's exhausting and it just slows you down. Anything that you could do because you're enough and you bring a lot of cool stuff to the party.
Every leader has a story to tell, and the Safe Leader podcast uncovers the diversity story behind leading figures championing change to make our world a better place. Join me, your host, Mark McBride-Wright, as we hear from business leaders, academics, entrepreneurs, and agents of change as they share their journeys of innovation, resilience, and transformation. Together, we explore how they embrace the principles of safe leadership, sharing, acting, feeling, and empowering to create safer, more inclusive environments for everyone. Hello and welcome to the Safe Leader podcast with myself, Mark McBride-Wright, and I'm delighted to be joined here today with Kirstie Langan, Global Business Development Director from PDI Limited. Energy Sector Director and mother of three, Kirstie joined PDI as Global Business Development Director in 2022, following a successful 20-year career working on and offshore, predominantly for Tier 1 contractors and engineering consultancies, including Technip FMC, Helix ESG, and Apollo. Starting her studies in oil and gas production technology, then laterally becoming a leadership graduate of Cranfield University, she has a wealth of experience and achievement in business growth and commercial direction, along with genuine flair for decommissioning, project delivery, and operations management. Kirstie is a vocal and passionate advocate for the energy sector who regularly engages with the media and politicians to help shape the future of the UK energy landscape. Kirstie, welcome.
That was quite an introduction, Mark. I felt reasonably uncomfortable listening to that, but I thank you nonetheless.
I think you and I have only met once in person
when I
spoke at the decommissioning conference in Aberdeen earlier this year. But we've engaged a lot since then through voice notes on LinkedIn and messages to one another. So I feel like I know you more than just someone who I've met once at a networking event.
Exactly, and you're so sweet saying that we met. The truth is, I completely fangirled you, didn't I? Because I thought your presentation was so wonderful, and then I tracked you down, and I had to have you in my life. Yes, that's what actually happened.
Well, I now you say that, yes, I remember. Yeah, but do you know what? How often do you give talks and then you just feel like you're talking into a vacuum? Like, to actually find out about the spark that you've initiated in someone's brain, or that the neurons connecting in your brain from that talk, and then you talking so openly about what you did in the follow-up post it helped me have validation that I'm trying to guide engineering in this direction. Like, it can be quite lonely sometimes when you're...
Definitely, and I think, you know, something I shared with you, I remember that day, was I obviously had a different vantage point being in the audience and reading the room through the various stages of your presentation, and I really wanted to share with you what I could see from where I was sitting, and the journey that a lot of people were on listening to what you had to say, and it was just really interesting. So yeah, I had to reach out to you, and I'm glad I did.
Yeah, I'm glad you did on that point actually, because I've made reference to that in some when I talk about the impact that I have in my speaking, because you shared that the physicality of the
Mhm.
audience members, particularly the men, changed when we shifted from the LGBTQ rainbow flag stuff then into the masculinity and engineering, suicide rates, etc.
Yeah.
You felt the tone and energy, and I could observe that from the stage, but the lighting, there's only so far you can see into the audience, so to get that perception from you was very, very valuable, so thank you.
No, thank you.
So let's talk about how you got to be in that audience. You've had an impressive career spanning various roles in business development and offshore work. What were you always drawn to the offshore industry, or did you have other paths and come into it a bit later on in life? What give us an idea of the young Kirstie and what you wanted to be, and has it panned out
Well,
that way?
I wanted to be a Spice Girl, Mark, and it just didn't pan out really. So, and I was telling someone the other day who was asking about my early career aspirations. When I realised the Spice Girl thing wasn't really going to plan, I also fancied being a policewoman.
Okay.
Mainly because I found the start of the bill, the feet walking along the
Oh
street. I found
yeah,
that all quite hypnotic, and
yeah.
yeah, I kind of felt like, I don't know, I don't know why. That can't have been the only reason I wanted to be a police officer, but I went through a period of that, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do, to be honest. And the career advice that I got at school, if I'm honest, it wasn't terribly enlightened, and it was a bit of kind of, you went into the library at lunchtime and you used some new system on this sort of Commodore computer or whatever, and it told you, everybody was going to be a social worker. So I don't know, and perhaps social work would have been good for me, and I've got a huge amount of respect for people that work in that field, but it seemed like all of us got a very similar thing, and I'm thinking, well, that's unusual. We're all going to be social workers, right? Fair enough. And then I went to my work experience. So we all got told where we were going for our week's work experience when we were 15, and one of my teachers who was really supportive of me and felt that despite the fact I never did my homework and I was a little bit disruptive in class, because I could work and talk at the same time, but a lot of people around me couldn't. So I would be given into trouble because my work would be finished and I had a great chat, whereas the people around me, they would just had a great chat. So, but this teacher recognised that she felt I had potential and I was smart. So she kind of voted for me to get a really good work experience assignment, and that was with BP in their North Sea headquarters in Dice. And so it was hugely exciting for me. I was 15. I went to Debenhams in Aberdeen to buy a pinstripe suit because I felt that I really needed to not just go to work experience. I needed to look like I was about 40. And so I wanted to dress.
You needed
I
to look
want,
like Posh Spice. That's what was good for
I'd
you.
love to say it was as cool as that. It really wasn't. I was going for middle-aged executive. I really wanted it to look like 100%, part of the workforce. The worst thing that could have happened in that week was people mistaking me for a school child. So I got my pinstripe suit, got the bus, the 305 bus from Turriff into Dice every day. Mum did offer to drive me, but I said absolutely not. I cannot be seen arriving with a parent. So I need to embody the full sort of workforce piece. So anyway, in I went to the environmental department at BP, and I was just, I don't know, I just found the whole environment just so exciting, and I can remember it so well. I walked through reception and there were all of these people answering phones, on the switchboards, and there were all of these clocks behind reception with all the different time zones. I was like, wow, I've arrived, this is incredible. And it just felt, like this thriving environment, and you could feel that there was really important stuff happening in this place, and it just felt really exciting. And I worked in the environmental department there for a week, and the lady who looked after me, and one of the environmental engineers, she wrote my report and said that I'd done really well and that she would encourage me to stay in education. and which I didn't, and that she could imagine me having a really fantastic career ahead of me, which I have, thankfully. But yeah, so that was really what kicked me off. After that, I got a little bit lost, and I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. I went off traveling quite a lot. I backpacked for a couple of years, and then I decided I wanted to work in the health and fitness industry,
All
which I
right.
did. I know it was a bit random. I did that for a couple of years, but it turns out I just quite enjoy swimming and getting a massage. I don't actually want to be a sports coach or a sports therapist. So I got a little muddled at that point, and I actually spoke to a group of young people about this recently, about sometimes understanding, what are your passions, what are your hobbies, and what are your career, because sometimes they cross over, but not always.
Yeah, very good advice. Very good advice.
So it's kind of like, what is the essence of the bits you enjoy and why, and how would they fit in your life? Would that be in a recreational sense or an employment sense? So anyway, after I'd done the traveling, had a bit of heartbreak, came home, bit lost, trained to be a personal trainer and sports therapist, set up my own business for a wee while, did all right at that, but it wasn't my calling. And then I had, I had a little bit of credit card debt and things from all this traveling. And I thought, right, I need to make some money right now and do something completely different. Where did I start out on this journey and what do I want to do? And that's when I decided to go and work offshore.
Wow. Oh, so you went into working offshore.
Yeah.
Right. It's funny how the seeds that are planted earlier on in our life actually just stay in hibernation. They germinate, and then all of a sudden the shoots start to come up. And that was a moment for you, wasn't it? Rediscovering from your past something that you enjoyed, and then making that decision to that's some good advice actually for people who maybe don't open up their doors as much to opportunities for young people or anyone these days, because actually you're investing in that person who might join you not just next graduate recruitment cycle but in 10 years time, you know.
100%.
um
Yeah,
how,
absolutely. And I think
how,
that.
how did you move into offshore then, from
So yeah, you'll like this. So I decided, on a Friday that I wanted to work offshore. So I kind of booked my survival for the Monday. Typical sort of Kirstie fashion. Decision's been made, right? Let's execute. So I went and I did my survival training, and my survival course was full of people sort of saying, oh, I did my survival training. I've never got offshore, so I'm doing it again. 4 years I've been trying to get a job
Right.
offshore, and I thought, what is that? No, I'm not. I don't want to do that. I want to be offshore like this week. And so I hadn't decided what I was going to do offshore. I just knew there was stuff going on out there and I would find something to do, but I needed somebody to give me a job to do. So it was all poorly conceived, this plan. But anyway, I got the qualification, borrowed some money, got the qualification, and then I just spoke to everybody I'd ever met, basically, to find out how I get offshore. And people said the easiest, quickest way to get offshore, if you don't have a specific trade or whatnot, is to work in the catering crew. Perfect.
Oh,
I
okay.
could do that. So I started door knocking at all the catering companies, and I went to a company called Trinity, and Stuart McBride, who's the top man there, I knew a few people who knew him and blah blah blah. And so I found myself in his office telling him how passionate I was about catering, and he didn't believe me at all. He said, "Are you quite sure this is what you want to do?" And I said, "Absolutely." Absolutely. So I want to be a stewardess and I want to do it now. I will go tomorrow or this afternoon, anytime. It'd be great. And he said, I think you're just using this as a stepping stone to get into something else. And I said, yes, that's also true. That's exactly what I'm doing. And he said, you know what? It's okay. That's fine. I want to support you to do this. He said, I don't know what it is. I think you're going to do something. And he said, if me giving you an opportunity helps you on that journey, I want to do that for you. So
Ah,
I'm always very grateful to Stuart, and I often tag him in things, and I saw him recently at an institute director's lunch, which was really lovely. So anyway, off I went to the Uski Gorm for a 4-hour flight from Aberdeen, refueled on the Triton FPSO, and getting off this chopper to refuel when we were on the Triton was so memorable. It was kind of like that walking into BP moment. I was just like walking through this process, and I was like, oh my God, and the sound and the feeling and just the North Sea all around us. And it just, I was really excited. And I was like, right, I'm out here now, this is the start of great things. And I felt really excited. we had a slight issue with the aircraft and ended up back in Aberdeen, and then I had to take a second flight out. So after 8 hours travelling on a helicopter that day, I did make it to the Uskagorm, which was one of the most aged assets in the North Sea at the time. But I was offshore, I'd made it, and I was ready to start my networking journey and find the great career. But what I didn't realise was that I'd been sent out there to be on my own on night shift doing dishes because the dishwasher was broken. So again, wasn't exactly what I had in mind, but you know what? I did a great job, and I worked really hard, and I did the dishes the best I could. It was the hardest physical job I think I've ever done.
Right.
That it was 12 hours a day, obviously, and the shift work and everything.
Wow.
It was quite tough going. So I did that. I did a few trips, not always on night shift. I did some time in the laundry, I did all kinds of stuff. So I got a promotion. I then went and worked in the little shop for Bond. I was selling the chocolate and the cigarettes, so that was fine. So I was just trying to do the best I could with what was in front of me, do a bit of networking, meet some people, and figure out my next move, really.
Yeah.
And then all the time I was applying for different types of jobs, administrative jobs, offshore. Could I work in heli admin? Could I be a project administrator or something? Because I did have some administrative qualifications and various things by this point. And I eventually got the phone call from one of the agencies to say there was an opportunity on a diving boat called the Seawell to be a project administrator, but I was committed to making another trip on the Blue Home at this point, to wash dishes. So, oh my gosh, what a moment! What a moment! So I said, I'm terribly sorry, I can't. I'm going to do dishes on the Blue Home. And they said, are you nuts? This is the opportunity you've been waiting for. You've been trying so hard for nearly a year, and you've got the opportunity, and this is a permanent job. I said, I can't, because I can't contact them, and I'm due to check in tomorrow morning. I can't do this. It's not right. I made the commitment. I just thought, this is not the right thing to do. I can't just stand them up. So off I went to the Blue Home, and I landed, and they shouted to me in the heli admin. They said, Kirstie, keep your survival suit on, you're going back to Aberdeen. They had a problem with bed space and they didn't need me. So I was surplus to requirements. So I cried all the way back to Aberdeen on that helicopter. I had missed my moment. I was absolutely heartbroken, and I thought, what a damn move, trying to do the right thing. Look how well that panned out. And so I did another trip of the dishes. We will get past this part of the conversation. And then 6 weeks later, I got a phone call, and it was Helix, who operated the Seawell, and they said to this agency, who was that lady? Because they remembered why I'd said no.
The commitment,
said,
yeah.
And they said the chap that we hired didn't work out at all. Now are you ready? And I said, now I'm ready. So I went to the Seawell, and I was there for nearly 3 years, and that's where I met Douglas Young, who was a wonderful offshore project manager, who was very supportive and encouraged me to study production technology and to broaden out what I was doing and really start believing in myself. And he taught me so much, and that role, kind of coordinating and administrating subsea projects on that boat, was really what set me up. And then the rest is kind of history for offshore. I was off to Technique for several years, worked on many different boats doing different things, but yeah, that was kind of the start of it all.
Fantastic. And then so that shows you the importance of early door mentoring and sponsorship as well, like people seeing potential and cultivating
and
that.
putting yourself out there and just asking for it.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if you saw the other day LinkedIn when I was quoting Katy Perry, another highlight. But yeah, when I was saying, like she says in that Daisy song, why can't it be me? Why not? Why can't I do that? Why can't I have a chance? And I think having that, just feeling that ability in yourself to ask, I'd like to do that. Can I have that chance? Can I have that opportunity?
Absolutely. I always think of it as I used to say to my brother, like, you need to accept the high failure rate. So if you're applying for 5 jobs at Cameron Toll Shopping Centre for a Saturday job, and you think, oh my goodness, I'm not going to get one, and you only apply, like, you need to be in every shop. You need to like be
Mhm.
printing off your CV, putting it in, and going to loads and loads of places to try, because it might be every 1 in 100 jobs that you'll be offered or something. So
And
you
I
need.
think you can also learn things from each of the experiences or take something from the experiences. You
Yeah.
know, I am probably better at doing dishes than I would have been had I not been a professional dishwasher for a moment there. There's all sorts of things in each of these experiences that you can sort of gather and put in your toolkit, and they can be really useful later on.
It teaches you resilience, failure, how you respond to rejection. Some of the things that as you get further into your career, where this may happen more often and at a greater scale and have greater risk attached to it, based on where the stage you're at in life, it makes you a lot more, like, yeah, thicker skinned, I guess, and able to handle those moments when they come up.
I think so. Yeah.
And so with your how would you then describe so we're in a process right now where oil and gas is going through a bit of a shit where we're shifting towards a greener future. We've got net zero targets to meet, and a transition to a renewable energy infrastructure. What role do you play where you're at now in that, with the existing fleet, the future fleet, and what excites you about the opportunities that exist in the energy sector in the UK?
So I would say I'm a great advocate for talking about the energy sector more broadly. I rarely speak too much about oil and gas in a traditional silo sense, and I think it's really important that we get away from this language, because I think it's one energy, and we've got a responsibility to safely produce energy for the citizens of this country, and internationally as well. So I feel like we've become very fixated on the energy source, and it worries me when we speak to young people as well, that rather than talking about how can we make sure that you have wonderful careers where you use your incredible mind and do great things that make you feel fantastic, and you work with people who you enjoy, and it's part of a really fulfilling life for you. How do we make sure that that is the nub of the conversation, rather than, well, is that a gas job, or is it a hydrogen job, or is it a nuclear job? From an engineering perspective, I think we're way too concerned with that more than we need to be, and I think talking more kind of, I guess, on an individual level in terms of the broader political landscape. That's a completely different conversation. So in terms of the broader political landscape, I think it's a huge opportunity for the legacy workforce that have brought the energy sector to where it is today. The skilled people in the offshore energy sector in the United Kingdom, it is mind blowing,
Yeah.
the depth and breadth of expertise that exists in this country, from an engineering perspective. Anywhere in the world that I travel, when people know that I've come from Scotland, when I've come from Aberdeen, and I'm there to talk about engineering, it really means something. And that's something I'm incredibly proud of.
I found, so yeah, you can tell from my accent I'm from Scotland as well. And but I'd only ever came to Aberdeen, and I did work in oil and gas, but I worked in oil and gas down in the southeast in the engineering design companies. But Aberdeen I only ever visited as a student, when I was looking at universities. I looked at Aberdeen University, but then I came up to give some talks. And what amazed me, like much later on in my career, and what amazed me was just how visible the engineering is. Especially, I came up in May this year for the decommission conference, and I just, like, even just getting off at the airport, you see engineering companies on the advertisement boards all around you, and you're in the taxi or your car driving somewhere, and then you see energy vans, or companies that are linked to the engineering sector driving around so it's very visible. It's very, very visible, I guess, is my point, compared to growing up in Edinburgh, where it's
Yeah.
it's not as visible. which
Yeah.
makes sense given the difference in the cities, like what job opportunities there are. Edinburgh's more financial and
Yeah,
investment.
absolutely. And I think it is a real kind of hotbed of engineering excellence here. And, we are a global centre of excellence for energy engineering. There's no question of that. And, taking it one step further, breaking it down a little bit further, from a decommissioning perspective, we're the best in the whole world at decommissioning. And I'm so proud of our decommissioning sector. And whilst we're very busy developing new energies, which of course is absolutely key, some of these new energies are taking a little longer to get online than any of us would like. And our decommissioning sector is so important right now whilst we get these new energies online, but from an employment point of view and a development point of view and an industrial export point of view, our decommissioning sector is something that on a national and international scale is so important.
Can you just give our listeners a bit more of a intro or context of decommissioning? Because I remember something that came up at the conference that it very much is like the second cousin that no one wants to be. Or that's not the
I
analogy.
do.
No. Well, it's like a job that people fall into rather than I want to work in the decommissioning sector. And I think part of that comes from people not really being aware of the scale of the opportunity or the scale of what's ahead of us and what needs to be decommissioned safely, etc. So can you just give us a bit of an idea of that space?
Yeah, absolutely. So decommissioning, I guess in its simplest form, when we have used resources, particularly natural resources, we need to return the natural environment to how it was previously, or whatever is safest to leave it. And decommissioning is everything involved from taking a producing asset, so an oil rig, for instance, everything from taking it from a producing state until there's nothing left, or whatever we're leaving on the seabed is safe to be left and it's preferable to removing it. So that whole process is absolutely massive in terms of engineering execution, risk management, project management, environmental management. It's a massive piece of work. And when we're looking at decommissioning the North Sea, for instance, the North Sea wasn't necessarily built with decommissioning in mind. So from an engineering perspective, it's actually really interesting. And people sometimes have this misconception that it's either all reverse engineering, which is not, or that it's just kind of pulling it out and it's very straightforward, which it's not. There's so much uncertainty around what's down there, and we don't always have it right. What we expect, we don't always see delivered. So that brings with it incredible challenges, and also as we're working to get better and better and better and more efficient at decommissioning, there's a lot of really exciting challenges that come with that. So I would love if people started thinking of decommissioning as a real first choice for their career, because it's such a special community to be part of. It's a really collaborative, wonderful community of people doing great things. So I love working in decommissioning, and my company, about 70% of our revenue comes from decommissioning, and we love it. It's a really special space to be in, and it's really exciting.
What's the sort of what's the industry worth? What happens to the asset when you bring it on shore? If you bring an oil rig, tow it to a yard, and what's the process to dismantle it? And what do things get created out of it?
There's lots of different approaches, and this is changing all the time when it comes to repurposing. There are some assets that get removed kind of in a more complete sense. There are others that get chopped up into little tiny bits and then taken out. It really depends on the nature of the asset, the integrity of the asset. There's such a spectrum of factors that have to be taken into account: water depth, temperature. There's just a whole world of possibilities on what is optimal for removing an asset. And then when the asset comes on shore, again, there's a whole bunch of opportunities with what you're going to do with it, whether it's repurposing it and even the style of demolition. There's explosive demolition, which is always fun to watch if you're into that kind of thing. There's again, each of these things, there's a world of possibilities. And when it comes to reuse, even concrete mattresses, which the North Sea has a lot of, there's some really interesting initiatives at the moment looking at how we can repurpose concrete that's been used offshore as well as all the steel. So yeah, it's a really interesting space filled with great people doing cool stuff, and a sector that we can be incredibly proud of in an international sense.
And I guess for people wanting to invest their lives into carving out a career in this space, it's easy to think, oh, decommissioning oil and gas. But actually, I remember here, like some of our nuclear fleet is now being decommissioned, and also like some of the first generation wind turbines, I believe, are now coming to the end of life and needing to be decommissioned. So it's
Yes.
not just oil and gas, is it?
Not at all. And decommissioning is a bad word. The actual word, I think we need a new word because it just kind of sounds like the end of the road, doesn't it? And I think it needs a rebranding because. And there's a quote that I love, and poor Caroline, I trot this quote out all the time, but Caroline Lawford, who is a wonderful woman, and she's a decommissioning leader extraordinaire and structural engineer extraordinaire, and all-round lovely person, and she is a leader at CNR and is amongst the best in the world at what she does. And she was once challenged when she was presenting about the longevity of decommissioning, and she said a line which I loved, which was, as long as there's an energy sector, there'll be decommissioning. It'll always be the last thing on the list. And I loved that, and I was like, the simplicity, but it's
Yeah.
quite right. So as long as we have energy, we have decommissioning. And exactly the point you make, we're very busy decommissioning early turbines, and yeah, nuclear is going to keep us busy for hundreds of years to come. So there's plenty to be getting on with, and it's engineering. It is engineering. We get so fixated on the silos of engineering, which is a little bit of a shame because I think sometimes we think of these things in a bit of a binary sense, and we needn't do that. It's steel, it's engineering, it's problem solving, and it's a really exciting facet of it.
So when it comes to having the workforce then and the skilled workforce that's needed for doing all this decommissioning in the years to come, what advice would you give to women looking to break into the industry or those that may be questioning whether or not they want to move come into the industry later on in life, but from a different career background? What opportunities are there to have people in the sector?
So I kind of sometimes struggle to give like gender-based advice.
Okay.
I will give people-based advice, I think. Do you know what I mean? And it's funny because I'm a really proud woman in energy. And, just the other day I was speaking to some wonderful girls in Shell's Girls in Energy program. And all of this stuff is really important. But something in me, I just think, I don't know what to say just to the women. So I would say generally, for everyone, the energy sector is filled with people who are the best in the world at what they do. It is such a highly skilled, motivated, incredible group of people solving the unsolvable problems, and doing, technologically just unimaginable things every day of the week. And with that comes just this energy, and challenge and continual growth and development that I think is hugely exciting to be part of. And I would really encourage people to come and have their career in energy, because there's just so much that so many places it can take you.
Mm, absolutely. I was reading though that the number of women in the sector age 35 to 50, this is engineering in general, not just oil and gas. We've got the highest rate of loss of women in the sector than we've ever had in the age 35 to 50 odd age group. So the chemical engineer in me, when we when we look at a simple mass balance, what we've got coming in doesn't equal what we've got coming out. We've got you want more people coming in than we've got leaving the sector, so we can get accumulation to help lead to more diversity, greater diversity of thought, more role models, more opportunities. So why do you think women in particular, are leaving the sector?
And is it Engineers age 35 to 50, did you say?
Yeah.
Or is it women leaving the workforce?
I don't know. I don't know to what extent
So
the backdrop plays there.
I would expect that there's quite a correlation with people having children, I would imagine.
Yeah.
And I would be interested to understand those numbers a little bit better, because I don't think we have a systemic problem in engineering where female engineers of this age group are leaving versus other. I could be totally wrong. I could be totally wrong. Versus other elements of the workforce. I think that that's a bigger issue, societal issue potentially. And I think, cost of childcare, don't get me started on that.
Yeah.
I think some of these issues play into that. But I would say we haven't got enough female engineers. We know this. 100% we do not have enough. They don't exist. So, this is really challenging. So in my business at PDI, our leadership team is majority female. Our engineering team is not. So we can control, to an extent, the gender split in the leadership team, which is multidisciplinary. But in the technical and discipline engineering team, it's really hard because they don't exist. And, that tells me that this is an education challenge and a schools and universities challenge that we still haven't really got on top of. But I referenced it earlier, but, Michelle's Girls in Energy programme and programmes such as these are so important just to get hundreds and hundreds of young people, young girls every year opening their eyes to the world of engineering in a way they might not have. And that's got to be a positive thing.
And when you're delivering, but if anyone listening to this just hasn't been involved in a program like that or experienced the I don't know, the warmth maybe that it brings you being an external, thinking, oh, if this was my, I don't know, 10-year-old self in the room and I was hearing this, like, would this have chartered me on a different course type thing? Would you encourage people, do you think enough of us are doing this sort of outreach to help raise awareness, to diversify our talent pipeline?
I think we can't do enough given the numbers. So if we think we're doing enough, do a bit more is what I would suggest. And I think bringing young girls into workplaces is really important as well, and young people more generally as well. I think understanding just how exciting and interesting it can be, and engineering is problem solving, and it's are you interested in fixing stuff? Are you interested in how things are made? Are you interested in everything around you? Of course you are. And I think you can get a little bit confused with when I spoke earlier about the core of what you enjoy or love, and sometimes that can be a little bit confusing. I remember years ago there was a young guy who was with my previous company on work experience in our accounts department, and I said to him, why accounts? What led you there? And he said, well, I'm good at maths, and my parents thought it would be a good idea. And I said, okay, you're good at maths. And I said, are you really interested? Do you think accounting is the life for you? And he said, oh, don't tell anybody, but I really don't want to do this, I don't think. And I said, well, did you know that maths is really important for engineering? And he was like, well, no, I'd never really thought of that. And whilst no disrespect to our accounts department, I absolutely took the guy hostage and spent my time trying to convert him to the engineering side of life. And his eyes were opened. He was like, oh my gosh, so I could still be good at maths and could still have a really lucrative career that my parents would be dead proud of, and I could be doing this stuff. Yeah, I'm quite interested in this. So that was really powerful. And again, like I say, that it's not to say that maths in its purest sense or accountancy in its purest sense is somehow second rate to engineering. Absolutely isn't. Engineering is not everything in the world. But sometimes I feel that the core skills required for engineering careers, sometimes they're overlooked as the component that they are.
Yeah, no, it's that. Yeah, totally. Sometimes because engineering isn't a subject that you study at school, not all the time. I know increasingly it is becoming so.
It's not a pure subject.
But it's not a pure subject, so unless you've got a role model or being on one, or a parent or who works in the sector or being on one of these insight days, my realization was similar actually. I did a work experience at Edinburgh University in their geology department because I wanted to be a volcanologist. Then I realized that you had to study geology to become a volcanologist. This is not my this is not for me. This is
Yeah.
very, very boring. No disrespect to any geologists and geophysicists out there. You do great work mapping the subsurface, but that wasn't for me. And then I went to the chemistry department because it was a subject that I was studying at school. Saw that you could then do chemical engineering, so started like looking that up, and it was on a course that I don't know if they exist anymore. It was a Head Start engineering course that I did when I was 14 at Bradford, University of Bradford. Like, we had to, it must have been about 2000 or something, or 2002. And we had to make a straw wheel, like off the London Eye, the Millennium Wheel, as it was called back then. We had to like roll it down a hill and just out with straws. But that was great. It opened me up to engineering, and that was me then on that track for what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
They're so important. I think we're involved in a couple of projects just now where we're doing STEM outreach, but my personal view is that it's just still a bit too bitty and
Yeah.
fragmented and
Yeah.
inconsistent. Is it actually really returning the value and the impact that we need at the scale that's needed? I'm not so sure. And I think that's because the companies that then look at the metrics are expecting a return like immediately, when actually, you're investing in these young people to
Absolutely.
influence a decision for like 2030, 2035 onwards,
Yeah.
and I
And I
think
guess you can probably get a quicker return, I suppose, if that's a key metric for you, with internships and all of this good stuff, which are also really important. And we love our graduate program here at PDI, and we love having interns working with us as well. And we've got a number of interns the last few years. We've borrowed from Robert Gordon's University, and that is just so cool to have these people spend part of their degree working with us for a year. Is a really cool thing. And again, just whipping them out of the academic environment for a minute and throwing them into this world, and seeing if we can spark something in them that says maybe this could be the life for you. Last year we had a summer placement student with us from one of the universities, and we actually managed to get him offshore during his summer time with us. So we got him through his survival, got him on a boat, got him offshore, and he's come back and joined us as graduate engineer this year after completing his studies. And similarly, last year we had, for a full year, we had in our marketing team, a marketing and business intern, and he did a great job for us. So I kept him on a part-time basis during his final year of study this year, so that he could continue this journey, because he's absolutely loved it, and he's managed to put so much into practice and just kind of had a different world opened up to him. So it's really
Oh,
exciting.
that's brilliant. That's so good. That's so good. Um, I mean, we spoke a bit about well, part of like the safe framework that I've developed since the conference is this idea of sharing, of taking action, of feeling, and then being a source of empowerment for others, and trying to really frame it in a way that safe leadership gets engineers trying to explore their own diversity story first and foremost. Like, what have they got to share with others so that you can build, become more relatable to one another about experiences that maybe you never actually knew one another had been going through. Um, and I think that is the energy within which the tone in the room that we spoke about earlier when I gave my talk, and you saw the physicality of some of the men in the room become a bit more inward, and feeling a little bit awkward. So in that model, in safe leadership, this sort of concept that I'm trying to align with EDI, where do you think there's like how can we move, how can we bring that into the sector? How can we help men open up a bit more, about their
It's
experiences?
It's a really tricky subject, isn't it? And I think I was actually speaking with a male colleague earlier on a related, not the same, related subject though. I do think that typically, we've got to be really careful when we talk about typical gender roles, right? Because I'm atypical. I'm a single mother of three who's director of an engineering consultancy. So when it comes to kind of typical gender roles, women apparently are better at some of this communication stuff around emotions and so on and so forth. But you get some great men as well who are so tuned into themselves emotionally and are really, really great at offering leadership in that perspective. And I do think that these men who are particularly good in this space, I really want to see them doing more with it, because I feel that when it comes to emotional issues, often women are looked to for leadership and the solutions. And sometimes it's harder, I think, for the men who need to hear this stuff to hear it from a woman. Dare I say it? Does that make any sense whatsoever?
Yeah, it does. Do you know, I've forgotten the term. I read an article on LinkedIn that kind of relates to what you're talking about, but more in the personal relationships in life. Oh, I can't remember what the term was. It wasn't mansplaining. It wasn't that at all. But it was like a word that was now
Yeah.
becoming a verb with the word man at the beginning. But it was basically talking about women in the personal lives of straight couples. Women taking up the burden of absorbing the emotional um,
Kind of like the mental load.
yeah, the mental load, thank you. Yeah, like
Yeah,
the
yeah.
mental load of like the men, of their husbands or their fathers or sons, whatever, but mainly husbands. So, but actually, if men were better at opening up more to one another and then having like close male friendship, like how many men actually have really close male friendship groups that they open up to, that they can share problems with? It's becoming more of a thing, but it's nowhere near at the scale
And
of
it's
what
really
like
difficult because I think a lot of men as well feel like, well, I don't want that, I don't crave that, I don't desire that. But that, I would argue, is learned behaviour. And I
yeah,
would say that, because generation after generation, that male experience isn't defined by those meaningful, deep connections with one another necessarily. I think that unfortunately has kind of locked out that option for a lot of men potentially who need it, and that for me is really troubling. I'm a mega open book, as you know, and that's not to everybody's taste, and that can be really jarring for a lot of people, and I do understand that, but I've come to accept about myself that this is how I am, and that's a them issue if they don't enjoy that about me. And my openness, though, and I'm very fortunate to be able to feel safe to be open, and that's largely because of how I was raised. My openness has bought me a ticket to support that I wouldn't have had otherwise. When I have gone through some of the most traumatic events of my life, I have, whilst it might have been uncomfortable, I have been able to open up about it in a way that quickly got me some support when I needed it.
yeah,
And had I not felt able to do that, I wouldn't have had that. And I think to a lot of people that maybe it's really difficult, that journey of opening up, and then they don't get the support. And it feels like a really kind of bad deal.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's getting access to the life support mechanisms, the buoyancy aids, yeah, totally, totally. I think there's so much work to do in this area.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So with your focus on strategic leadership, then thinking about what we've said there, what are your future goals? How do you want to keep making an impact on the sector you're working in?
So, I mean, I guess in terms of what keeps me going and keeps me excited is creating great career opportunities for people to join businesses that I'm a leader in. That is what ultimately is really exciting for me, is developing services, selling services, winning work that ultimately create an environment where people can come and develop themselves, develop their careers, and have really exciting jobs. In its simplest form, that really excites me. And if I can help people as well believe that they can be better than they think they can be, or they can achieve more than they think they can, then I think that is such a cool thing to aim for. I've had the fortune to have leaders who made me feel like that, and that's what's helped me get much further than I might have. My father, I always say, was one of my first great leaders, and he made me believe that I could do great things. And you know, he used to say to me, Kirstie, you're very fortunate. You're one of the few people that can do absolutely anything you set your mind to. Now that may or may not be true, but being told that constantly from a young age, you know, I believed he believed it,
Yeah.
and that helped me believe that I could do more, you know. And when all of the negativity in my mind, like everybody's mind, the self-limiting beliefs which plague us all, when they're on the go, it's really nice to think of Dad's voice saying, come on, why can't it be you? You can do this. You're capable. You're one of the few people in the world that can do anything you set your mind to. So it's really nice to have that counter. And I would love to be the type of leader for the people around me, and I really hope I am. But I can always do better. But I want to be the type of leader that makes people think, yeah, I could give that a go. Maybe I could do that. Kirstie seems to back me.
It's amazing. You've inspired me. Your dad's inspired me to be saying that more to my daughter.
I think it's important, you know. I really think, yeah, you know, it's important we have cheerleaders. But it's like I was talking about someone on my team actually earlier. I was speaking to somebody else, and I was saying how I love empowering people. I think you know, micromanagement is a really bad idea for a whole bunch of ideas, for a whole bunch of reasons. It's bad for the person, absolutely. It stifles your own creativity and everything else, but it's also really time consuming.
Yeah.
And I generally do way too much. So selfishly, I need to get some of my time back. So if I don't micromanage, then it helps me manage my own time, if that makes sense. And I was talking about the fact I've got this young person in my team, and I really like empowering him because it's the right thing to do, and he performs better, and he's really, really accountable because he knows he's got things that he's absolutely responsible for. But I do it very clearly by saying to him, I'm going to give you this project to manage because I believe in you, I know you can do it, and also if any element of this goes south, this is all fixable stuff, and I'll show you how it fixes it as well. And he's kind of like, yeah, but do you want to double check? No, I don't want to double check, just do it. I trust you, and I promise you, any element of this particular project that I'm asking you to work on, i.e., you know, a marketing campaign that we're getting ready to go out, or preparing for an event, or whatever it might be. I'm absolutely not talking about an engineering project at this point.
Put the guardrails in place,
yeah. And I say, what's the worst that could happen? And we'll figure it out together, and I'll show you how to fix it, because that'll also be a fun learning opportunity. So I feel like giving people that sort of opportunity to really figure stuff out, but in a supportive environment where you're given the right skills, is a really cool thing to aim for.
Okay, quick fire question round now.
Oh my gosh.
We're getting ready. What is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Can I have two?
Okay.
Okay, the first one is just ask. Just ask. If it's in your head, just ask. Just ask a question. You want to do it? Just ask. So I love that one. The other one is be comfortable enough in what you're really good at to not try and be really good at everything. There are other people that are better at the other stuff, and learn as quickly as you can what it is you bring to the party, and feel really good about what you bring to the party, and let other people bring their best, and it won't be the same thing.
What's your proudest professional achievement?
My proudest professional achievement, I would say this last 2 years here at PDI, this business, this has been really, really exciting. You know, we more than doubled this business last year, and I've had a lot of freedom here to do what I think is right in terms of developing new services and making some really exciting developments with the business. So I would say this last 2 years, growing the business here at PDI has been the most exciting and rewarding part of my career so far.
What's the one skill you think every business development leader should have?
Genuine empathy.
Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
What's your go-to productivity hack?
Empower your team. Gives you your time back.
If you could have dinner with any leader, past or present, who would it be?
Dad.
Your dad.
Yeah, he passed away a few years ago, and I know that it sounds, you know, a bit odd when I could choose a great spiritual leader, but honestly, I would love to have dinner with my dad.
What's the one thing you do to relax after a long day?
Swimming.
What's the most exciting project you've worked on in your career?
Ooh, all-time most exciting project. Oh, I can't pick one. Do I have to pick one?
Yeah, one. I've given you two on another question.
Exciting. Okay. Most exciting project in my career. Not necessarily for all the right reasons, but I was working on a diving vessel that was nearly finished being built, and we were doing construction work already. So we were completing building a diving system below deck whilst moving it in and out of port in Norway, doing construction work at the same time, coming back alongside, doing more work on the dive system. So we were basically in a building site and a live construction vessel mode. And it was so, it was very fast paced, it was very challenging, but it was incredibly interesting and unlike anything I've ever done before.
What's the one book or resource you'd recommend to someone interested in leadership or business development?
I would say I do like a Mel Robbins podcast, I must say. I do enjoy that. Or I would recommend people read The Safe Leader by Mark McBride-Wright, is what I would suggest.
Thank you. What's the one piece of advice, finally, you would give your younger self?
That the main piece of advice would be lose the self-limiting beliefs a bit quicker, because man, it's exhausting and it just slows you down. So anything that you could do, because you're enough and you bring a lot of cool stuff to the party and you've got a lot of good things that you're capable of, and you've got lots of value to contribute, and it's more than enough.
Brilliant. Well, that's great advice. Well, I've really enjoyed our chat today, Kirstie.
You too.
If people listening to this want to get in touch, connect with you, find out more about what you're doing, what PDI does, how do they do that?
Please connect with me on LinkedIn. And I do receive quite a few messages and things, but I do my very best to get back to people. So yes, absolutely connect with me on LinkedIn, follow PDI on LinkedIn. We're pretty active.
Wonderful. Well, what we'll do is we'll put the link to your profile and to the company as well in the show notes that accompany the transcript of this talk.
Great. Thank you so much for having me, Mark.
That's all right. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks, Kirstie.
Thank you.
You have been listening to the Safe Leader podcast, uncovering the diversity story behind leading figures championing change to make our world a better place. If you have enjoyed the episode, please subscribe to the Safe Leader podcast on your podcast platform of choice and get notified when a new episode goes live. Did you know that we also offer a full transcript on each of our podcast episodes? Check out my website, markmcbridewright.com. Here, you can also explore the training, coaching, and keynote speaking services I offer. And whilst you're there, why not join the Safe Leader community by subscribing to the Safe Leader Insights mailing list? Thank you for listening, and please come back and join us on a future episode.